is the meaning of life? Or is it what makes life meaningful? Are we affected by what we see in our past? Or by what we can't see in our future? Is anxiety or depression the cause? Or are they just the effects? Hello, everybody. Welcome to Thinking Out Loud Live. My name is Ricardo Zulueta, and I'm your host. This show is made possible by Start Day One, which is a nonprofit foundation for mental health and suicide prevention. Basically, we have a more proactive way of helping people rather than reactively waiting for people to get mental health issues or suicidal tendencies. And so that's what we're kind of trying to do with this show, is basically interviewing different people and hopefully changing your perspective, and that can somehow help you out. Today's guest is going to be discussing about how she transformed herself from, basically from trauma from the past and becoming a motivational speaker and transformational coach today. So I want to welcome Erica Lynn.
Hello.
Hey, Erica. Hi.
How are you?
Good. Please tell everyone where you're calling from.
Well, I am calling from Michigan.
Okay.
Nice, cold, and the sun came out the last 2 days. It's still cold, but thank God it melted all of those big mountains of snow that we have received.
So I did kind of a quick just preview of what we're trying to do. But if you can you just kind of give yourself an introduction to the audience about kind of what we're going to be talking about, where what your story is, just a quick, snippet, and then what you're doing today.
All right. Well, as he said, my name is Erika Lynn, and I am known as Erika Lynn Speaks. I am a motivational speaker, a transformational coach. I too have a podcast, Erika Lynn Speaks podcast, and I'm an author of a book called 7 Techniques of Healing. And how Erika Lynn and Erika Lynn Speaks got started is because I hit rock bottom. My trauma started from childhood and it escalated to teenage years. Then it carried on over to my adult years. To one day after I graduated from college when I was 35 years old, I thought, well, surely my life is going to be a breeze. Now I'm going to be making millions of dollars. I'm just like, I'm going to finally be out of debt. Everything is going to be great. Well, in hindsight, that's not what happened. I ended up hitting rock bottom. The depression got so bad, I hit rock bottom and I became suicidal. And I felt like just throwing in the towel and giving it all up. Even though my children were great, they had I did my work as a parent to have successful, wonderful children. But for myself personally, I was just dying on the inside. And what I learned was that all the pains and traumas that happened to me along the way, I never did the healing work. I never did the work that was required in order to get the results that I needed. Instead, all I did was had a broken foundation, a broken core, and just started adding life onto it. Kids, school, husbands, dogs, jobs, all of that. And finally, it all came to a head and just gave way. So once it gave way and I hit rock bottom, there was nowhere else to go but up. That means that I had to do the work that was required. I had to go through my healing journey. I had to be vulnerable. I had to share things with people that I've hidden for so long, all the secrets that ate away at me. Until I did that, then and only then did I become free. And to show you guys how truthful I am about what I did, I put it all in a book, The 7 Techniques of Healing. And that is part of Erika Lynn's story and how I got here.
Yeah, I like the intro. No, it's awesome. What I like that you're saying, and when you try to mention the core, because a lot of people that are, in life coaching and all that stuff, or just overall, when people hear things, it's just very like hypey. It's just hype, right? It's difficult when no one's leaving with some sort of, guide on how to help themselves, because, you can get everyone's exposed to motivational stuff every day. You can go on Instagram and you got all the quotes you need. You got Facebook videos, inspired all day. But then they don't know what to do with that inspiration. They don't know how to basically fix themselves. So I like that you keep talking about the core. And I know you have was it 7 steps or 7 values? What do you say?
7 techniques. I call it 7 techniques.
7 techniques.
However you want to, value steps, because it's all do the same. The steps never change. It's the people that change.
Right. Yeah, and the circumstances also, like, so that makes sense. And I like the way you say, you have to go through the journey. When people say they're depressed, the first thing I say is like, good, you're almost there, because that's the 5 stages of grief, right? There's the denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. But if you don't go through these steps, you almost never go to acceptance. And if you can't embrace that pain, it's going to be so difficult for you to appreciate the pleasure, right? So, and to me, like, that's kind of what why people get into drugs, alcohol, things like that, because it numbs the pain. And at the same time, to some people, I feel like they're kind of relying on pharmaceutical drugs to do the same exact thing and basically numb their pain. Did you go through any type of stage where you went into kind of drugs or alcohol just to kind of get the pain out of the way, or even just pharmaceutical drugs?
Man, my whole life.
Like
my whole life, when the first trauma happened to me, part of the story is when my dad left when I was a little girl, I was searching for love that your dad is supposed to give you. So I'm searching for anybody to show me attention. Can you be a father figure to me? Can you be an uncle? Can you just be anything to me? And so the first glimpse of attention I got was from a neighbor. I thought he was trying to be like a father figure, but needless to say, he turned out to be something otherwise. So one day we were going to the store. My mom said, can you have him take you to the store? I need some stuff for groceries. We're coming back from the store and I go to get in the back seat. He says, no, why are you sitting in the back seat? I want you to sit in the front seat. I was like, nah, I don't want to. So needless to say, I lost. I got in the front seat, but I sat very close to the door as I could. And I'm looking out the window like, oh, like this is just the greatest scenery ever, something that I've seen all my life. And he says, well, why are you sitting so far? I said, because I'm enjoying the scenery. He says, well, I want you to come a little closer. And he reaches over and he gently grabs me and he pulls me close to him. So back then, there's no center console. There was just one long, big front seat. And so I knew what was coming, kinda. I just began bracing myself. And that was like, this was my armor, my fortress, right? Well, he just began touching me and doing inappropriate things. And a 13-year-old girl was no match to a grown man.
Yeah.
So in hindsight, when we got home, I didn't tell my mom because I didn't want my mom to go to jail for doing something to this man. So instead, what I did was I ran. I became a runner. All my life I ran, but I started smoking weed. I started smoking cigarettes. I started drinking. I became very promiscuous. So all through life, in order for me to function or to be able to deal with certain things, I got to take a drink. I got to smoke a joint. I never did any hardcore. Well, those are, I never did any hardcore drugs, but those were hardcore to me.
Yeah.
But what I learned, I'm 44 years old now. And this is the first time in my life that I'm able to have relationships from a sober standpoint. So when somebody says, Erica, what do you like to do for fun?
Yeah.
I say, I don't know, like smoke a couple of joints and have a couple of drinks. But I didn't do that anymore. So that was like not an option. So now I had to go on this road of discovery to really find out who is Erika Lynn and what do I really like to do that don't include smoking joints and, taking a drink.
Yeah. So I like pointing out to the audience the things that you say or the things that people say, because people don't notice these things. So one of the most helpful things that Erica was doing during at that time was when you don't have a future mindset and basically a future version of yourself that you can see, it makes it very difficult because we tend to be sad or depressed, not because of what we can see about our past, it's what we can't see about our future. And so when she was all down and out, it's because her future, she was seeing a different version, right? But then there's
Right.
that one day, and always takes a decision. Always. I got to tell everyone, like, it always starts with a decision. Nothing will change until you do this. But all of a sudden, one day, you just kind of decide that you want to be someone else or something else, right? And then all of a sudden, you can see a completely different future. And when you do that, all these things automatically change. Like, I feel bad for the people that are constantly blaming the drugs, blaming the weed and the drugs, and that's what it is. Like, no, that's not what it is, because it's a good time. It's just that your mind is messed up. So it's really all about your mental state of mind, right? And that's why you're attaching to these, and that's why people get addicted. The biggest thing, the reason people get addicted is because the lack of bonding with people. They don't know how to bond with someone. They don't know how to tell them their stories because you're hiding so many things. And because for people that complain about, that argue, about heroin being addictive and stuff, well, explain to me how gambling works then. Where do you put in your body? How about the sexual addiction? Like, what did you take that kind of made you addicted to that? So I like the way you already talk, and it just shows when someone has a good mindset, because they talk about like, this is what I want to be for the future. And it doesn't have to, it just gives you that sense of hope, right? Yeah. Because the one thing I've been telling people, there's a difference between suffering and struggling. So people always say I suffer from depression. I suffer from anxiety. And it's just like, that's because they think there's nothing they can do about it. And that's what they're being told. And that's what sucks. That's what we need to change out there. When you struggle, it's kind of like being on a marathon runner, right? Marathon sucks. Doesn't matter how good in shape you are, right? But you're struggling to get to the finish line because right. There's a finish line, there's hope. That's what you're trying to achieve, whatever it is. Suffering is like being in jail and there's nothing you can do about it. So you suffer in there because there's nothing you can do. So when you take away hope, that's when people suffer. And I feel that when we talk to people, we have to give them a sense of hope, because when you get rid of this sense of a better future, they're done. They will not survive. They're not going to change because they only have one version, the fucked up version, right? Like, I'm going to be a loser. I'm this. It's like, dude, it doesn't really matter. You got porn stars that are now freaking business founders, it's like, or they could have just thought, well, once a porn star, always a porn star. Like, no, it's like, it doesn't matter what you were in the past at all. And that's kind of like Erica's story, right? You're basically proving to people, like, it doesn't matter what happened in your past, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, the first thing that I had to do was I had to change my mind. Right. So I had to go through the process. I call it your mindset mastery. And how you do your mindset mastery is you have to understand and know that there's a bigger picture, right, than where you are at now. But in order to get to that bigger picture, you got to believe in it, feel it, and own it. But if you're saying, okay, I'm sad, I'm depressed, that bigger picture is not going to come. It will come, but you really got to do the work. See, it's hard for a coach to have a client that doesn't want to do the work. So I'm supposed to magically wave a magic wand and just heal you.
Right.
And, by the things that I say. Well, that doesn't work. You actually got to do the work, right? So if that's journaling, if that's meditating, if you're soaking in the sauna, if you're running a marathon, whatever the process is for you, then you have to be willing to do it. So you might not like it. You might not want to do the work, but you have to do it. So I did my work. There was days where I didn't want to get out of bed. There was days where I cried and I cried and I cried. I mean, there was days when I was just like, I'll never be anything in life other than what I have been. I was like, I'm tired of just being broke down. And like, what else is there to come for me,
Right.
And while I was going through my healing journey, do you know my father passed away in the process through my journey? So I had already been on my journey. So by the time my father had passed away, because he and I had got closure, we spent like the last 3 years of his life together. And when he passed away, I had already begun doing my healing work. So I cried, I was sad and so forth, but it didn't take me back down that deep depression because I did the things that I needed to do along the way to be strong enough to subdue and keep moving forward. So
Mhm.
when we got to writing the 7 techniques of healing, I was flowing through the book. Boop, 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 boop. Got to the
Mhm.
chapter about my dad, and I was like,
It's all back.
so I call a friend. It's like 4 or 5 in the morning, and he's like, "What's up? Like, you're not gonna call me at like 4 or 5 in the morning. What's going on?" And I was like, "I'm over here working on a book, and I'm working about my dad." So what he did was he started cracking jokes.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about my dad. We didn't talk about the book. I mean, he cracked jokes, and I laughed so hard. And then 30 minutes later, before I knew it, he says, "You good?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Okay, now get back at it." And I went right back and I went through that chapter. So it's all about your mindset, right? And how you're able to shift your thought process, how you're able to shift your mind from negative to positive things, and how you surround yourself with a support system that when you're not strong enough to do it for yourself, that they got you. When they say they got you, they got you. And before you know it, you went from tears to laughing. You laughed so hard, you probably peed on your pants, you know?
No, great point. So one of the things I like that you're saying, you got to work for it. And I tell people all the time, like, it always starts with a decision. It's not a maybe. It always starts with a decision. I met people, like there's this one time, this kid was kind of come up to me. He's like, "I like the way you're saying that it starts with a decision." And he's like, "It's not that easy though." And I told him, I'm like, "I never said it was easy, but that's where it starts." And he said, "Yeah, but I'm in rehab now. And, I'm doing this, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "That doesn't matter. It always starts with a decision." "Yeah, but," and I'm like, "Oh my God, listen, stop saying but. It always starts with a decision. Tell me why you can't do that." And I backed off, right? And what's funny is when you're in a bad place, we tend to love excuses and hate accountability. So he sat there. 2 to 3 minutes just looking up in the sky, going through his database of excuses, like, which one can I use? Because he goes, "Yeah," almost said but again, but the only reason is because I already caught him. I'm like, "Don't say but. Now tell me why you can't. Go." And so he's going through until finally he stops and he says, "You're right. You're right." And I was like, "Yeah, I know. You're welcome." So there are people going through rehab and they haven't even decided to get better, because they're basically challenging it, like, "Let's see if this works." Yeah, but if you're not on board, it's not going to work. If you're going in there for your parents, it's not going to work. You're going to do it out of spite or for whatever else reason, other than like, what, I got to get better. It's just not going to work. And you're wasting your time, wasting everyone's time. And it really doesn't go with that. And so one of the things that, what Erica was saying, like, is basically just a shift in perspective. I don't really believe in shifting it more on a thinking positive or negative. Everyone knows to fucking think positive. The problem is that no one's shifting their perspective, because you can have a different perspective and think positive and negative about it.
Yeah.
So, for example, the example I've been using a lot is my perspective is that the only way for me to be of value is when my dad becomes proud of me. I can think positive and say, like, well, there's always next game. I can prove myself. Well, I can work harder. I got this. He'll be proud of me when I get this job. That's thinking positive, right? But the perspective sucks.
Yeah.
Because you're so reliant on that perspective. So you need to change your perspective. It's not just about think positive, negative, because those are temporary anyway. It's hard to be motivational until your perspective has shifted. In fact, it's not even a good idea to motivate someone until they shift their perspective and make the decision. Because if they haven't made a decision yet, goals don't happen, and motivation can't work. Inspiration needs to come first. Inspiration. So there's a big difference with inspiration and motivation, right? Inspiration is just exposing you to the knowledge and like the positivity, right? But I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just trying to inspire you and go like, "Oh, okay, 7 techniques. Okay, I'm listening, But once I decide and, Erica shifts my perspective and go, "Oh, well, she got out of it. Wow, she was in that situation too." All of a sudden, I relate, I get inspired. Then decisions follow, because when your perspective changes, your decision follow that also. Your decision doesn't end up here when your perspective is this way. It always follows. If I think I'm a loser and I'm not going to make it, guess what decisions I make? If I think I'm awesome and well, guess what decisions I make?
Right.
And it always does that. So this is the thing, is it's always shifting, right? I bet Erica, we all go through it, right? We're doing this as our job, but we still go through pains, man. It's not every day because that's impossible. And I don't understand how people can think that. But my main point in that is like, when you need to change, it has to be intentional, right? Whether it's finding out your purpose, shifting your perspective, it doesn't shift on its own, unless it's affected by something, whether it's a movie, talking to Erica, things like that. All of a sudden, the perspective shifts, and then, and that's really what happens. And so, when you talk to your clients and stuff, what's the very first thing you kind of, I guess, tell them to do? Like, what's the very first step with your clients?
One of the first things that I like for them to get a book before we even start our session, to show me that you're serious. Then I give homework. Like when we sign one after the free consultation and you're ready to sign up, because generally it's about maybe 7 days from, you first signing up to give me time to get things together. But depending on the state of mind or what you're going through, I'm going to refer you to a book. Ultimately, more than likely, it's the 7 Techniques of Healing. That way, when we have our first session, that showed me that you were serious, right? You started reading the book, so that when we go through the material and go through the steps, I know that you're on point. I know that you're serious.
That makes
if
sense.
You show up to your session and you didn't do anything, that means that you're looking for me to do everything.
Yeah.
And it's not going to work that way.
Yeah, that's funny. That's one thing I forgot to mention on as I was talking about that. Like, first step is intentional, right?
Yeah.
And the second thing is that they need to know is, dude, not one therapist, not one book is gonna help you or cure you. You actually help yourself.
Absolutely.
We're just guiding you. Like,
help me help you. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Because we don't do anything.
Yeah.
There's nothing we give you. There's nothing. It's just like, it's all about you. You have to do something about it. And until you make that decision, you're wasting both our times.
Yeah.
Because that means you're not. And that's what I've been seeing with people with anxiety and depression, right? And I think it's not really their fault, because we're giving them the wrong information about anxiety and depression, because they get stuck. And the reason they don't make a decision, they think, well, I was told this. Like, it's almost like it's worse than cancer now. There are people that fight cancer, and cancer is deadly as hell.
Mm-hmm.
When people get depression, it's like, no, I got depression. That's it. And then that's it. Like, literally, they don't do anything about it. They think like they're stuck, and they're just like, well, I guess I got to take pills. They try to get out of it, but it's like they think they can't get rid of it. They think it's some kind of virus,
Do you know that money, finances, is probably the number one leading cause of depression? And the reason why I say that is people don't really want to say, I'm depressed because I'm broke. I'm depressed because I don't have this. They have all the other reasons. I'm depressed because this happened to me. I'm depressed because I'm stuck. I can't get ahead in my life.
Yeah.
But you take that same depressed person and let's say you give them $50,000.
Yeah.
They're going to snap out of that depression. And then when the money is gone, they'll be right back into that.
And see, what Erica is referring to is this. Depression, everybody, is not the cause. Right. It is the result. It is the effect. What is causing it? Money is obviously financial difficulties, all that stuff. Oh, it sucks balls. Definitely causes the depression. Yeah. But it could also be abuse in a relationship. It could be just because you think something else. It really all comes down to your perspective based on what your experience is. What is your perspective today? And a lot of people, it always starts there. What's your perspective? But really what throws them off, the very first thing for me, what I tell people is like, well, when people tend to feel lost when they're like that, right? And the first thing I say is like, well, where are you going? Where are you going? You don't know. You're always going to be lost.
Yeah.
Take the time to figure out where you're going, or else you're always every left, right. And I tell them, that's like you right now. If you were driving in a car, you're basically in a highway and you put your car in park. Mm-hmm. And then you're saying, I'm lost.
Right.
Is that what you do when you're driving? I'm lost. I'm going to park here and just go right here and do nothing about it. And that's what most people do. And it doesn't make sense to me. It's like, don't you want to figure out where you're going? Look at your GPS, maybe. The girl's telling you reroute. It's like reroute. And you might have taken a wrong turn maybe 5 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it is. It's going to take you longer to your destination, but you can still get there. But until you know where you're going, well, it's not really going to matter.
So the question then becomes, how do I know where I'm going? Or how do I even know how to get there, right? So if you, like you said, if you're driving the car and you just stopped in the middle of the road and you're like, where am I going? How do I get there? Well, the whole key point to all of this is identifying the route. You got to identify the route. So you got to go back to the beginning. And then you're like, well, maybe I left the paper at home with the address. Maybe I left the plan, the purpose, key, all that, left that back there. So I got to go back there. And then I got to identify and figure out where I'm going. So once I go back there, then I realized when I got back to the table, I saw that, my bills were overdue. I saw that I was abused in an abusive relationship. I saw that I drank a lot. I'm addicted to drugs. I became promiscuous to hide certain things in my life. So these are some points that people go through. But when you go back and you identify like what it is, now you can figure out how to fix it. So once you fix it, and then you bring yourself to that point in the road to where you're stuck, you're saying, wow, I understand what caused it. I understand that I am not to blame that I got beat. I cannot blame myself that I was in this abusive relationship. What I can do is change my mindset to say that I love myself. I'm better. I'm more than enough. I'm loving. I'm beautiful. I'm compassionate. I'm wonderful. And I can go anywhere I choose to go. And most importantly, in that particular situation, I always say we teach people how to treat us. And the reason why I say that is after you finish that original root cause, right? And then you go into a new relationship, what do? We bring all those same old behaviors, same old mindsets and all of that into a new relationship. So if the new guy wasn't an abuser and you came into this relationship with that mindset of saying, I want him to abuse me, not saying that you want him, but you don't realize your mannerisms and your behaviors flow like that. Mm-hmm. So then that relationship then becomes abusive. And you're like, wow, how do we get to that point? Because you did some of the same things that you did in the first relationship. You didn't start out that way in the first relationship, but this is the situation or outcome that came from the first relationship. So until you heal, fix, identify all of the things that has happened to you, then and only then can you go into a new relationship.
Yeah.
Some people don't know how to be alone. I don't want to be by myself. I don't want to. You know how some guys go through a divorce and they divorced Susan today and they married to Jill. The divorce ain't even cold. It ain't even like he didn't even get a chance to live by himself. He left his wife and went straight to Jill.
Yeah.
You know how to cook, clean, do nothing because the new woman. But all in all, if you take the time to spend time with yourself, then you will begin to really understand what happened.
Right.
You'll begin to talk through things, walk through things, understand that I am not to blame, or understand the decisions that you made, the part that you played in it, because there's a lot of people that believes in playing the victim, right? Yeah. And I say all the time, you're so used to playing the victim, you don't even know how to be the victor. So if that's you're so used to being the victim, you don't even understand what it's like to be the victor. So when I say about playing the victim, what does that mean? Well, that means that when you're in a new relationship, that you don't know how to just have a communicative relationship with him. You just automatically like blaming him for stuff. But then did you stop and think about the part that you played? Did you stop and take ownership about the things that you did? Because sometimes you can communicate with the person and that'll solve a lot of things. Or other times you can say to yourself, I'm beautiful. I'm wonderful. I'm not taking that mess. I don't have to stay in this relationship. I'm out and leave.
Right.
You don't have to be there for like 10 years, 20 years before you realize that this relationship sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not just for women. Men play the victim too. You
Yeah,
know, I had a client, we went through this whole thing and she was kind of breaking down some of the things that happened between her and her ex-spouse. And we're dealing with her depression. And when I felt like she was strong enough to kind of handle a little bit of the things that I could say, because I got to get them a little strong before I can really kick certain realities to them. And I said, so you expected him to carry your happiness? You expected him to carry the hurt? You expected him to carry the pain? You expected him to love you? You expected him to hold on to you, to be responsible for this, to pay the bills? I said, damn, that's 10 things. Can I ask you a question? She said,
right.
what? I said, in this relationship, what were you responsible for?
Yeah.
And she said, oh, damn. She's like, damn, I guess I am asking him to hold on to a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And under that type of pressure from one person, that's enough for anybody to crack.
That's right. That's right.
You know?
Yeah. So a lot of things that you mentioned here. So, like the blame, when people are like blaming different people, and, like that's when we're in a negative mindset. It always kind of happens, right? And, there's so many things. There's two ways that you can't move forward. One is something is holding you back. And two, you just won't make the damn step. So a lot of it comes with resentment and regret, right? And it's funny, like I used to think, like, can we even live without regret? And only years later did I find out, like, yeah, actually you can. Before it was like, let's try not to, like no regrets. Everyone knows don't hold on to regret, but you still get it. So I figured out, like, okay, so how the hell do we get rid of regret? What I realized was that we have to figure out what regret is first. Regret is just a personal experience you never forgave yourself for. That's it. Erica, I could have, should have, would have. You didn't forgive yourself. And that's actually the way you get rid of regret, even resentment, except resentment is forgiving someone else. So those two things really really hurt you, right? It's probably one of the worst things why people get into like depression and stuff like that. And when you were mentioning before, when you're trying to identify things, it's a good thing to kind of analyze things from your past, but don't freaking let that define your identity today. That's the problem, because people go, oh, but this happened to me and this happened to me. That's just the way I am. I'm an introvert. I'm this. It's just like, all right, first of all, you're telling you that. I don't know where you got that information from, but because you're telling you that.
The favorite. This is just the way I've always been.
Right. You chose that though. So people, and there's this book, Personality Isn't Permanent. That's exactly what it is. It's not permanent. And we're not a product of our past. Like basically it's who you are today is basically should be at least based on who you're going to be for the future. And that's a lot of the things that people are like not learning. Like, when you have the different perspective on things, it really hurts you. We talk about relationships and stuff, like, you're talking about like an abusive relationship. When you have this identity that you think, well, this is the type of relationship I get into because that's who I am. Well, that's really going to hurt you in the long term, big time, because you will not change. And that's what's called a fixed mindset, because a growth mindset is very malleable. It always changes, because these are the types of people that know Erica 5 years ago is not the Erica today. And Erica 5 years from now is not going to be the Erica today, because we're constantly evolving. That's why they call it, or Simon Sinek, and he doesn't say this, but that's why it's you need that infinite mindset. Because today I see someone else 5 years from now. Well, in a month from now, that 5 years from now is a month later, and then a month later, and then it keeps on going. That's why you're always seeing a different version of yourself. And if you cannot see that future version of yourself, you're going to have a hard time. But that's what actually should define your identity. For example, if I told you like I was poor and this and that, and basically I'm telling you I'm not going to make it, well, obviously I'm already identifying who I'm going to be. I'm telling you who I'm going to be, rather than saying like, you know what, I know that all happened, but you're telling me it's impossible to get out of poverty, and it's not. So you have to figure out, what do you need to do? But the only way is, well, what's the future version that you see for yourself? What do you see? It's a happy one, not just a rich one, So because You can be rich, but then be unhappy, and you don't want that. So make
Yeah.
sure you're very, you know, uh, you're very specific with that. And
Yeah.
when it comes to accountability, you know, you say before, you know, it's like, what's your responsibility in this? And we tend to get in that space where it's not our fault. You know, it's never us, because it's easier that way. When you can blame, that's why people love diagnosis for depression, because it's like, oh, it's not me. Whew.
Right.
I thought I had to do something about it, Erica. Whew, looks like I can't do anything about it. Anxiety. And when it's today, seriously, I mean, it took a while to get here, but today I kind of cringe when I hear people say I have depression, I have anxiety, because all they're saying is like, Erica, man, I have an emotion. I have an emotion. That's all they're saying, because happiness is also an emotion.
It's a feeling.
Anxiety, depression are just two emotions. They concentrate on that because that's what sells, man. That's what sells, depression and anxiety. There's
Well,
other emotions.
right. That's what I'm saying. Like you said, that's what sells. But that means that you're stuck in that mindset, right? That
Yeah.
If I tell my story, and my story is saying I'm so depressed, I'm so sad, this is the result of it, then everybody is saying they're pitying you, right? They're playing into your pity party, or they're like, oh, she's so sad she can't do any better, or he can't do any better. Oh, it's so sad that he's depressed. So that is an example, because I couldn't think of one when we were talking, but that is a perfect example of being the victim, wanting to always be the victim.
And here's what sucks is because our doctors, our organizations, our society is telling them, you are a victim.
Let me ask you this.
That's the problem.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So you have the clients or the people, everybody that says that I'm depressed.
Mhm.
And then the first thing we say is, did you go see somebody? Well, I don't want to go see a psychiatrist, or I don't want to see a therapist, or they just want to put me on medication. And I don't want to walk around like a zombie and all this.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't want to use measures that's ultimately placed there to help you, because if you're so depressed that you're one step from jumping, or why wouldn't you want to be on medication that's going to help you?
Mm-hmm.
So you telling me that you would much rather stay in the mindset that you're in and continue walking around saying that I'm depressed. So sometimes I have it's a struggle at first when I get clients that's bad, that is bad. And I tell them, you can still have a therapist and a coach as well. We're going to help you heal, we're going to help you fix, but you got to be willing. And so we can have a client that's great today, right? We didn't work past some of the stuff. Then something triggers, and then I'm getting messages like, oh, I'm just going to throw in the towel. So then, being the kind of person I am, I do stuff outside of the box. So we're not going to get on the Zoom. I want to see you face to face. Let's do something different, or let's go to painting with the twist. Let's go. You know what I mean? So being a great coach means that you have to take extra measures, and you have to be able to show them hands-on that if you just open your mind just a little bit, these are your other possibilities.
Yeah. And basically, and that's what you do, right? All you're doing as a coach, as a therapist, and anything, it's really all about shifting someone's perspective. Like before, you were talking about someone to take the pharmaceutical drugs or whatever. It's like, until you shift their perspective that, hey, you should try it, it's not going to happen. But I have an issue with that also. I have a very different mindset on that, or at least perspective on mental health itself, because I see depression as the result, not the cause. You see, right away, that's already a freaking problem when you think depression is the cause, because it doesn't make any sense. Because that's like saying, like, man, my diabetes is making me diabetic today.
Correct.
Like, wait, what?
But you're correct.
My obesity making me feel obese. Like, what? It doesn't make any sense. So basically, what has done is not even their fault, and that's why people are scared to do taking the drugs. It's actually a good thing, and when we're feeding them this idea that the depression is the cause, but then how does happiness happen? because of the lack of the emotion, because people are trying to get rid of an emotion, which doesn't make sense to me. I don't know how old you are, but I don't know when depression became abnormal. I have no idea when. All of a sudden it became abnormal. Someone dies, I'm depressed. Yeah, no shit. You're supposed to be. I don't get it. And then, but when you tell them diagnosed with depression, I mean, I see it all the time. I'm on Clubhouse and I'm listening to these things and people talking about like, I deal with depression and anxiety. And I'm just like, I just want to go in there like, oh man, I've been dealing with happiness for like 20 years. It doesn't make any sense because you're telling me I'm never going to be depressed. That's impossible. I'm healthy. I'm happy. But you're telling me I shouldn't get depressed, that when that happens, it's going to be a bad thing. So it's not that,
Well, the thing is, everybody is going to get depressed or sad or something at one point or another.
Yeah.
And those clients who really, really struggle with that, there's all in that first part of healing. It's the first chapter. The first things that my client do. There's a whole list of things that we have to do to even get you past chapter 1. You know what I mean? Before we even make it to the mind shift, the mind shift, first of all, we're identifying. Like we said before, the steps never change. So you have to identify what is the cause of this depression. Right. What brought you to this point?
Now we're talking.
Right. So once we identify it, then we can fix it, because how can you heal something that you don't know what you're healing?
Thank you.
So you can't just heal because you say I'm depressed. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah,
what,
exactly.
You wake up sad? Like, okay, you wake up sad. But why are you waking up sad? What happened that brought you to this point? And now you're sad. So once we identify that, then we can move forward. And then on your journey of moving you forward, you got to build a support system. Totally. Because I can't be the one to support you all alone. We got to call your mama, your brothers, your sisters, your cousin, Ricardo, everybody. And so that Erika Lynn is not available, or Ricardo is not available, you have the people that's in your support system that's going to be with you long after I'm gone on somewhere else. Right. And so eventually, when you get strong enough, then you're saying, I've taught you. See, also what you don't know is you learn techniques, right? To catch yourself. Because now I begin to show you, what does it look like when you're getting depressed? Well, I'm sitting watching all my children every day, and about 1:30, I just get extremely sad. And okay. So then the next day, I watch all my children. So you tell me, every time you watch all my children, you get sad. So can I ask you one question? How the hell is you still watching all my children? Can we replace all my children with something funny? Can we replace it with something else that you like? And then I can give you a personal experience from me. I was in probably about my 3rd or 4th relationship. We lived together. We dated for like 2 years, but we moved in together for 45 days, right? Yeah. When I get into the house, beautiful house, like, oh my God, it was wonderful. 45 days later is when I found out that he couldn't stand my children. Okay, so I said, oh wow. Well, yeah, so he had to get drunk to tell me that, you never gonna listen to me. Your kids ain't gonna act right. I'm moving out. And I said, well, I can't afford this house by myself, so you ain't gotta leave, I go. So my son, he probably was like 16 at the time, and he was visiting. He didn't live with us. He was staying with my mother finishing high school because we moved into the suburbs. Yeah. But he was visiting, and he said, all right. Like, he acted like he was sad that we was breaking up, but he was so happy. So he went, I had a minivan, and he packed everything he could in the house in the minivan. And we drove away with the minivan, like dragging on the ground, So my mother happened to call, and she said, I was just calling to check on y'all because my grandson over there, and I know they kind of don't get along. I said, well, it's funny that you called, Mama, because we on our way to your house.
What's cooking?
So we moved into my mama's house. For 3 days, I stayed in the bed, and I cried. And back then, my brother used to sell bootleg DVDs. So I put in, I don't know if you ever seen the movie Jumping the Broom. But I put Jump in the Broom on, and when you got a bootleg DVD, it just keeps playing over and over.
Yeah.
And so for 3 days, I watched Jump in the Broom. I ain't never gonna find no husband. Oh man,
That's
it's
it.
over, right? So I carried this complex with me for many years. I didn't want to go to people's weddings. If I watched a wedding on TV, I would cry uncontrollably. I, like just even my sisters, I had no choice but to be happy for them.
Mhm.
But I really, I had like this whole thing about going to a wedding. And it was one day that I had really, and I had kept saying to my friend over and over again, like, I can't watch this movie. I can't watch this movie. I hate weddings. I did all of this. And so he said, okay, it's time to fix that.
Yeah.
And one day he came over and we watched Jump in the Broom. And he did something that was so profound. So we watching the movie, he pushed pause and started talking to me. This part, that part, asking me questions. So then I'm laughing. And we go to the next part and the next part. And then before I know it, we made it through the movie. And I had a whole total different experience when it came to the movie. So no, that movie no longer had negative connotations to me. It no longer carried that weight and that depression for me. And even though I'm not married now, I'm happy. And so now I can go to somebody else's wedding and truly, honestly be happy for them because I did my healing work and I'm happy within. I know I'm wonderful. I know I'm beautiful. I know anybody would love to marry me.
Right.
But I had to also understand, and was I really ready for marriage? Like, if I got into a new marriage, am I going to carry all this old baggage, right? You know, so I had to do my healing work in order to be ready. And then when I'm ready, then God will open up the door and my Boaz will say, okay, it's time. But at the same time, he's not coming in to be my rescuer, right?
Yeah.
He's coming in. We're going to be helpmeets.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, and so all of it again is about mindset. And so I hope that story helps somebody because Erika Lynn dealt with stuff too.
No, and then that's the greatest thing that I'm hearing from you is that, you know, when people start, like I mentioned before, people start blaming the cause and it's not their fault. The doctors told them to blame depression, to blame anxiety, even though that's just the result. It doesn't make any sense to blame the result because you can change anything you want with the result. If the cause is still here, it doesn't matter. It's kind of like, hey, I run every day, but you still eat in McDonald's every 5 seconds. So it doesn't really, it negates everything you're doing. And I believe that there's a diet and exercise for the mind also. Affirmations is an exercise, meditation, exercise, physical exercise helps. But when the diet of the mind sucks and your perspective is, you know, your past, you know, trauma, and that's what you're feeding yourself, or going on social media that it's the end of the world. Well, you're giving yourself a bad diet for your mindset. That doesn't matter what kind of exercise you do. If your perspective is shot, and that's almost always the cause. Doesn't matter what the hell happened to you. It's almost always the cause. And I feel like what trauma does is shifts and keeps you in this perspective rather than seeing yourself in a different way. Because the only way to have a growth mindset is to realize that you can actually grow from that. And when you don't look for the cause of things, and I tell people all the time, stop buying the better mousetrap. Why don't you figure out why the mice is coming in? Because all you needed was duct tape. Like, Mousetrap 2000, get the hell out of here. Like, dude, duct tape. It's like duct tape. Just piece of wood and duct tape, done. You know? But you have to look at the cause. So it doesn't matter what you do to remedy. And these are just all the results. Same thing with happiness. You know, when you, like, Erica's in a good place now in this, it's because she sees a different future for herself now. She's not stuck on this past. Because don't let the past identify you. The past is meant to learn from. The future is meant to guide you. The present is where you fucking execute. This is where you make all the decisions. That's what makes the present so freaking huge. Is because this is where you do all the decisions. But without that future guiding you, and without learning from the past, you're gonna make the wrong moves. And again, now then we go back to like, well, what's the mindset on failure? You know, that stuff. It's like, dude, just your perspective on success and failure will change your life just like that. Because I feel like, see, sometimes I don't realize how many people don't know that failure and success is one line. It's not failure success. It's failure success. the only way I can relate to it is like I used to wrestle, right? And for me to have, I did better because I got my ass kicked, right? Because I kept learning and learning, and then all of a sudden I go against someone else, and it's like, yo, this is that was easy. What happened there? I killed him, because I'm learning along the way. Or you could have said like, yo, you should really stop wrestling, man. Like you're getting your butt kicked. Yeah, but that's how else am I going to get better unless I go through that? Do you want me to go against like a second grader? Because I'll win all day, every day. Am I going to learn anything? Nothing. So it's actually required. And I tell people it's actually a requirement. That's why I tell people, dude, it's impossible to live life to the fullest. Don't think you can. It's impossible because the bad things are necessary. Like it's required for a fulfilling life, or else rock stars would be fine. Right? Like it requires a fulfilling life. And this is what I mean. Have you ever seen a movie without conflict or challenge? Nothing went bad at all in the movie. Superman has no kryptonite. Like you're not gonna watch You're not gonna watch Superman if you know he's just gonna eat popcorn and beat the freaking bad guys like this. Right?
You had to overcome the challenge.
Yeah, and same thing with sports. Does it get easier? No, it gets harder and harder all the way to the Olympics, man. It gets harder and harder and harder and harder. Then why the hell are people doing it? And it's actually making your life more interesting. And you never watch riches to riches stories. Maybe sometimes, like Elon Musk and shit. But most of the time, you get inspired by the rags to riches. Why?
But they don't tell you all the stuff that's in the middle. They don't tell you all the challenges and the process that the people had to go through to go from rags to riches. They didn't just wake up a rag and tomorrow they riches. They had to work. Even if you see in all the movies, even though the movies don't depict the actual time that it took to get to riches, they just show you some of their struggles, right? For sake of the movie is only 1 hour. But in reality, some of that stuff took 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Even with a successful business, it's a process. And one point that I want to make, it is okay to fuck up. I know y'all don't hear me cuss, but it is okay. Let me tell you why it's okay. How can you learn from your mistakes if you don't fuck up? How can you understand that? My mama told me, don't touch the stove. Mama said, hot.
Yeah.
You touch the stove, I was just hot.
Yeah.
Like, you fucked up. You touched the stove.
Right.
But guess what you'll never do again? You're not going to touch the stove. So that is how we learn. We're human. We make mistakes.
Yeah.
But what's important is when you make that mistake, you got to learn from it. Don't keep going.
That's the problem. The problem is not learning, not the fucking up. It's that you didn't learn. Damn. Same boyfriend, abused again. Damn.
Right. But don't have that mindset that, oh man, I messed up again. Oh, no. Have you ever, like, that's what I love about guys. You be like, you cheated on me or you did this. And you know what a man is saying? I fucked up. But you, and you want to choke them, but they're telling you the truth.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And as women, we don't want to accept it because we want a better explanation. We want a better answer. We want this long. So, you want him to react like a woman, but he's just telling you.
And that's what's tough. In that situation, the only way for that dude to learn, you can't go back.
Correct.
You can't go back because no lessons learned.
Correct.
Until you go like, oh man, good thing for the next girl, but it ain't me. Because once you go back, there is no lesson learned. And that's what makes it really tough. It takes a lot for them to prove that they learned something from that. And just to change people's perspective on what Erica's mentioning here about failure. If it's impossible to fail, it is impossible to learn. If you already knew everything, it's like, well, there's nothing you're learning at all. And your life becomes stagnant and it doesn't become fulfilling. And that's why I'm saying, it's like, dude, you need all these negative things. It's like playing a video game. I will bet everything I own that if you had a video game that you can beat in one session, you're not going to go, man, yes, I'm awesome. You're going to go, that game sucked. That game sucked. But why would it suck? You won the game. Like you went through it. You went through the whole thing. But put that in your life perspective. You want to win in life with nothing goes wrong, nothing at all. You don't have to figure anything out. Everything's predictable, all that stuff. Well, that's not going to happen. And that's what I teach a lot when people, we talk about depression and all this stuff. It's like, it's all about prevention. See, people have a different perspective on mental health itself, right? To me, everything starts with a bad perspective. That is what evolves to becoming suicidal tendencies. This is drug abuse, alcoholism, my girlfriend sucks, Monday sucks. It's all different stages.
Yeah.
But it's one cause. And that's what I like that Erica did, was like, well, what's causing this? Because if the depression is not causing depression, the cause is causing depression, because a depression is an emotional response. That means it's responding to. It's a choice how you respond to things, right? And so that's what happens. Same thing with happiness. It's temporary. No one's just depressed and then depressed forever. You have to be causing that. There's something causing that. And
if you think about the therapist, right? You got the hypnotist, the therapist, because oftentimes people they throw stuff back in their subconscious and they forget about it, right? So they erase the memory because they don't want to relive it. Right. But when you talk to a licensed therapist or even a hypnotist, every time they go back as deep as they can in your memory bank.
Yeah.
To pull out some of those memories. And those memories oftentimes is the cause. Yep. So if one of your memories is your mom always telling you, you stupid, you dumb, you ugly. Even if she was laughing or playing, that stayed in your psyche. And then that resulted over in your adulthood. Yeah. One of the things that I learned, and I didn't even realize that this was a thing, and I learned this when I was younger. My mom always said, I love you. She was real affectionate, hugged and kissed on us and stuff. And when friends would come over to the house, they go, dang, y'all are close. Your mom, always says that. And I was like, yeah, don't you get that at home? No, my mom never told me I love. So I didn't even realize that was a thing. Yeah. That parents don't just naturally say, I love you. Like my kids still, they grown, they coming out. I love you, mom. I don't care where across the world. But that instilled something in them. They're able to be affectionate and to be loved and the person that they're with. So then hindsight, the person that didn't get the love, then you in a relationship with them and you like, hey, you won't tell me you love me? You won't just wake up, hug me? Why you won't look like you don't like me? And you thinking that they don't like you, or they like you in other, like they like you in other ways. They show you in other ways. They just can't verbally tell you, I love you, or show affection in that way. But when you do the digging and the deep digging and diving and root cause, that's when you find out like it started from childhood.
Yeah, almost all the time. And to me, it's like, it's not necessarily, a lot of times, it's not just getting rid of the emotion. I kind of feel like that's really drastic stuff. It's really, you got to learn from it, right? And you just have to change your perspective on it. And for example, with what you're saying with parents, a lot of the issues that we see today, it always goes down to your upbringing, how you were trained to deal with stress, how you were trained to deal with loss. And giving everyone a freaking trophy ain't gonna do it. I'm telling you that right now. Because now they don't know what loss feels like, and then they lose their girlfriend. It's the end of the world. Even when you know how to handle loss and you lose your girlfriend, it's still so devastating. But imagine feeling it for the first time. Oh, it's the end of the world. So suicide rates are going up sky high because we're not teaching them the right skills that they need to actually make it through life. And when you change your perspective on things, like you were saying before with your parents and stuff, right? A lot of times, I tell people this, like, there's not one parent that said, man, can't wait to be a dick to you. I can't wait. Like, no one, not one. They're always like, oh, wow, no way. So you have to just understand where your parents are coming from, because you're taking it personally. You're thinking the world revolves around you and this is what's happening to you. And it's the only one doing this in the world. And when you have a better understanding of who your parents were, because I tell them about this puppy theory. You are who you are based on your upbringing. Kind of like a pit bull biting someone is only because of the upbringing, not because it's a pit bull. Kind of like when people say, like, well, this is who I am. Like, no, it's because you were brought up this way. And you're blaming your dad, your this. But before you do that, can you do me one favor? Just realize that you were a puppy and you were brought up in a certain way. That's why you are who you are, kind of like your experiences, right? With that person, whatever. But you have to understand, all right, what made your parents be the way they are? because they were just puppies too.
Mhm.
So when they're abusing you and you're doing this, like, you have to remember, like, what made them turn that way. Don't go, oh man, my parents are this and this and that, and they're so bad for me, my life sucks. It's like, they had it worse than you. They got their asses kicked.
Yeah.
You got beat up, but they got their asses kicked. So
Yeah.
when you can understand that, because no one just decides in the future, I'm going to be a drug abuser.
Right.
No one decides I'm going to be the worst parent in the freaking world. I can't wait not to be proud of them. Who wants to not be proud of their kid? But they don't know how. Sometimes because they just don't know how to love. That was my dad. My dad didn't know how to hug. It was just like so awkward. It's so awkward. He doesn't know. He doesn't know how. But I didn't get mad at him. I mean, maybe like when I was a kid, but later on, it's just like I understood. And I'm just like, I wonder how he was brought up. Like, that's so weird. Like, it's because no one just becomes that, because it's an effect, right? There's always a cause. Same thing with depression, anxiety, and all that stuff. You have to look at what's causing it, or else you're never going to fucking figure it out. You're always there trying to remedy the result. It's not going to happen. So any last words? We're already an hour. Look at that. Erica just getting us going here, quick mention, like, can you tell people your 7 techniques and basically how they can reach you and all that stuff?
Yes. They can go to the website, erikalynspeaks.com, as you have it here on the screen. I'm on all social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook, Erika Lynn Speaks. The 7 Techniques of Healing is a book, as you heard us talk about the first chapter, which is Heal. It allows you to identify the root cause. Like, we have to peel back the layers and go dig through all your little kooky stuff in order to figure out what the root cause is. But after you heal, then you have to educate yourself on your needs and where you're trying to go, what you need to do. After you heal, educate, then you have to take action, because what good is it to identify and educate yourself on something and you don't do anything about it? Once you take action, now it's time to take that leap. When you take a leap, sometimes you don't know where that leap is going to take you. You don't know if you're going to land on your feet. You don't know if you're going to fall flat on your face. You just don't know. But if you believe in yourself and believe in your passion and purpose and the mission of things that you have to do, then don't be afraid to take that leap. Then after you take that leap, next it's time to inspire yourself. See, I can inspire you. Ricardo can inspire you. But what happens when we're not around? So you're going to learn some techniques that I'm going to give you to teach you how to inspire yourself and keep yourself motivated at times when you going across something that's a little nervous or a little scary that you feel like you can't do it. I'm going to show you what you can do to continue to inspire yourself, continue to self-motivate, continue to just be the best you that you can be. Next, we're going to address need again. Need means let's reassess and reprocess what needs you need, where you at now, right? Because things have changed when we went through the first 5 things. And so now your needs have changed. And let's reassess and reevaluate where you at. And lastly, growth. Wow, when you look back at yourself, see how far I've came. Oh my God, I've overcame abuse, trauma, depression, sad lack of not having a job. Oh my God, my mindset has changed. I have really grown. Look at my company if I've started. Oh my God, I've blessed people all over the world. But the best important part in growth, one of my mentors said to me, each one must teach one. So when you grow to get to the best place that's within you, grow to changing lives or making a difference or just understanding and discovering what your purpose is, and reach out to somebody else that you can say, you're going to see yourself in them. Like, wow, I remember I used to be like that, and actually help them grow. Share these 7 techniques with them as well. Allow them to grow. And so in order to get the 7 techniques, you can go to my website, erikalynspeaks.com, or you can go to Amazon and you can get 7 Techniques of Healing, How I Overcame Abuse to Live My Authentic Life. And the book is more than just me telling you my story. I designed it as a guidebook that's going to ask you some questions that is going to blow your mind. But guess what? If you lie to the questions, you're not lying to me. You're just lying to yourself. And you are delaying your growth and your healing process. So it is time for you to grow. It is time for you to be the best person that you can be. It is time for you to love yourself unconditionally. And guess what? always remember to take one step beyond you. And that's how you find me.
I love it. I love it. And, as you can see, that's why we have the episode saying, loving yourself so you can help transform your life. And it looks like that's where she really changed. That's the biggest change she made, was just loving herself. And she didn't learn to, because she was always seeking out for it. She didn't know what love was because of the daddy, leaving. And so her perspective was shot with what love was about. Her perspective on love itself was wrong. So, but thank you so much for sharing your stories, your insights, your knowledge, helping people out, inspiring people, making them laugh at the same time. That's always nice. So, but thank you for taking the time and speaking to our audience. And I definitely look forward to talking to you again in the future.
You're welcome. And thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye. See you, everyone.